I have a question. Can you guys hear me?
Sure,
Yeah.
go ahead. And then Mark.
Yeah. All right. So my question is specifically related to liquidity providers, and I don't know how much everyone here has done any of the DeFi stuff over the summer, but let's say you're a liquidity provider, and my understanding is anything that you earn from that is deemed as ordinary income. But how is impermanent loss treated?
Oh man, this is like the old. I lost my. Generally speaking, I lost my private key, or I invested in a project and it went to zero. That kind of question. Similar.
Well, no, it's if you're a liquidity provider, and I guess if you're providing liquidity for a pair of assets, and the assets don't move in the same direction at the same time,
Oh,
then there's a chance that the underlying asset that you provided will have some sort of impermanent loss. There are some tokens out there that are saying that they're solving that problem, like Bancor and I think Dodo or something like that. But if you experience impermanent loss, does that get treated as a sale? But really what you were doing is providing liquidity. So it gets very complicated, and I haven't been able to find an answer to this.
no, it's such an emerging space. I don't think there's any formal guidance, and you're sort of going to define it. You sort of define it through your tax reporting. You can say, okay, I'm going to take that as just a capital loss to the extent I have gains to offset it against, or I have to carry it forward. I'm limited on how much I can use that loss on my taxes. I'm sorry, I'm not going to give you a really concise or definitive answer, other than I think it's at this point you could just have it be a loss to offset your ordinary gains, but that I think the DeFi is one area that I think the government is still very far out on addressing and unsure.
Right, and then kind of a caveat to that is in some of these instances where you provide, if you're a liquidity provider and you put your tokens into some other system, they will give you something back, basically allowing you to claim those tokens. Something like Balancer will do that. So you'll provide something like Ether into Balancer so that it then goes and does some automated liquidity pool services. And you get these Balancer tokens that basically act as a voucher for you to go back and get what you claim, although those might experience an impermanent loss. Is that providing that Ether into something like Balancer, is that going to be considered a taxable event?
So I actually had a lunch with a lawyer, and we were discussing liquidity providers. And the conclusion that we came to, but of course he said, but this isn't my professional advice, unless I get paid to take the risk, is that when you put your tokens into the liquidity provider, what you're actually given is, as you mentioned, the liquidity provider's token. Now, on their displays, they normally show you something that is purportedly your current balance on each and the like. But you actually don't have that at that point. What you have is the liquidity token. So it's when you move in and out of the liquidity token that is treated as two sales, and you calculate your cost bases from those. Because in addition to your number of each token being shifted according to the relative price, of course, the prices of the relative tokens have gone up and down. So basically, you should treat it like two sales, or two exchanges, where you start with your pair, you pretend as if, well, you don't pretend. You start with your pair, you say that you're selling them, and that's a taxable event, and it establishes the cost basis for your liquidity tokens. Then the converse operation happens when you withdraw from the liquidity provider. You're selling the liquidity tokens and you're setting your cost basis for your pair.
And how strong do you think a counter argument to that would be, that you are just receiving a voucher. It's not really something that could be sold. It's just a custodial token.
You could make that counter argument. The problem is that then sort of fuzzes things, because what you put into the liquidity pot, is changing value. And then suddenly you have different numbers of tokens when stuff comes back out of the pot. This was actually something that he was talking about, because he said, well, it seems that, you could also do what you were saying. And he actually backed off on that concept when I said, well, you don't get the same number of each token back out. And, at that point, it's like, wow, that's really ugly what that does to your cost basis.